Hey everyone, this is Megan Hillier from Know Your Ancestors, and you're listening to the Know Your Ancestors podcast. Many of us have an innate desire to understand our roots, to know where we come from, and to understand the lives of our ancestors. On the show, I sit down with content creators and entrepreneurs to share some of the stories that I've uncovered and compiled about their own ancestors. Watch and listen as we discuss the traumatic and life-changing events of their close ancestors that helped shape who these guests are today. Welcome to the podcast today. Today is behind the scenes look into the research that I did for our last episode 37 with Christopher Ward, where I researched his Irish ancestors and found some records for his ancestors to show with him on that episode. So if you haven't seen that one, be sure to go and look at that. He's related to the famous Bronte family, and it was really fun to show him some of the records and find the stories and information about his ancestors. So in this episode I'm doing today, I'm going to show you two websites that you need to use for your research in Ireland after 1864. If you have ancestors that lived in Ireland in the late 1800s, you'll definitely want to pay attention and try to find some of these records for your own ancestors. So I'm going to first show you how to locate civil records in Ireland after 1864 and census records. Now, in Ireland, a lot of the records were destroyed. Previous census records were destroyed in a fire. And so we just have two census records, two census years that we have to look at in Ireland. There are some remnants from other years because of later filing anyways, but we're just going to focus on the 1901 and 1911 censuses. So if you had ancestors that lived there in the early 1900s, I'm going to show you how to find those census records as well. So let's get started. Okay, so this website, irishgenealogy.ie, is key. It's the website you use to locate civil records. They do have some church records, but I'm just going to focus on civil records. This is a great website to use. As far as I know, it's the only one that has civil records on from Ireland. Now, these civil records, those are birth, marriage, and death records. So which ones are available? Under this help menu here, it tells you which years are available, but pretty much from 1864 on, that's when they started recording them. Deaths we just have from 1871. They're still working on updating those, but I think there are some earlier than 1871. But we have births 1864 to 1923. We have marriages 1845. Now these ones are just non-Roman Catholic marriages started in 1845. Roman Catholic marriages started in 1864. And we have up to 1948, and then deaths from 1871 to 1973. And again, they're still working to go backwards to 1864. So those are the records. So if you have ancestors that lived in Ireland during those years, you can see if you can find some of those records for them. So I'm just going to show you how you can search for those records. So we're going to be looking. So here is Christopher's family tree that we researched for him. If we just look at here, so we had information from his mother. She had told me how they were related to the famous Bronte family back here. So we had each of these people, William, Margaret, and then Margaret Callahan, and then William Doherty. So if you know people in your family tree already, you can just start looking for these records. Some of the information that you have from other family members might be based on these records. They might just not have provided them. They might be gone or whatever. So you can find these records to verify dates that you already have. Or maybe you need to do some more research. Maybe you're like, okay, my grandpa was born in Ireland. You got to figure out where in Ireland he lived, right? Where was he born? That information can help you locate birth records. Okay, they did start recording the names of the mothers, like the mother's surname. I can't remember when that is indexed, what year that started, but I feel like it was close to 1900. I'm not exactly sure. I'll have to find that out. But you can search for their name and find the location that they lived in. It would be helpful to have that information before you start just looking for a birth record in Ireland, right? So want to do as much research as you can. If they immigrated to the United States in like the late 1800s, maybe they were born in like 1867, you want to find their birth record, you really need to figure out where they lived in Ireland before just looking for a record. Does that make sense? Because there might be lots of people with that same name. How do you know that you've got the right guy in Ireland? Okay, you want to really be able to narrow it down to the location. So with that, let's just give this a try. So Chris's grandfather or great-grandfather was William Doherty. So Doherty, that seems like a name that could be spelled lots of different ways. So we're going to put William in here, and you could just spell it the way that you think it is, or you could put in, maybe you're not sure if there's like a A-U-G-H, you could put a D star and then a T-Y. Okay, let's just try that. We're going to look for a birth and then search. Okay, now they want to make sure you're an actual person. You have to put in your name here. It is free, but you just have to put in your name. Okay, so then when you look at the results here, there's 1,531 possible results. Okay, you can see how, since we have William and then that asterisk has everything that's a D and then a TY ending. Okay, so we've got lots. Doherty, so that looks like it could have been spelled or indexed incorrectly. Doherty. Okay, we've got lots of different ones. Okay, maybe I just want to try filter that again. Let's go down here and let's change it to how his name was actually spelt. Okay, but if you are searching for your ancestor and you're not finding it, you could use asterisk as a wildcard for any other results there. Okay, so we still have 1,391, even though we changed that there. Okay, so you can see all these registration districts on the left-hand side. So it is really helpful to know, if you know where your ancestor lived, to narrow it down by registration district. Now, how do you figure out what registration district your ancestor lived in? Well, hopefully you know the county that they lived in, or the townland is the smallest location that they lived in, or maybe you know the village or the town that they lived in. So there's this website here that I will link in the show notes. It's swilson.info, and you can come to the registration district map to browse the districts. Okay, so these were all the districts that they had that they used for births, marriages, and deaths. So Christopher's great-grandfather lived in Londonderry, or Derry, and maybe I'm not sure what registration district it is, but I know that he lived in Coleraine. So if I look here, there's Coleraine is listed here, so it's probably the Coleraine registration district. But if it doesn't show up there, maybe they registered his birth in one of these neighboring districts, okay? So you can try those as well. So let's try to narrow that down to Coleraine. So just on the left-hand side, you can do that. And now there are 44 results there, okay? Now maybe we know about when he was born. Maybe we know that he was born around 1903. So we can narrow that down as well. When we go down here, maybe let's do 1902 to 1904. Okay, so you can play around with those things to see what you get. So now we have 4 results. Okay, now you can see that some of these list the mother's maiden name. Okay, most of these were, well, these ones, the mother's maiden name is Doherty because the father was different. Okay, but we have those 2 William Dohertys. One has the mother's maiden name of Doherty, one has Callahan. Well, if I go back and look at Christopher's tree, his second great-grandmother's maiden name was Callahan, so William's mother's was Callahan. So then we can click on the one that we believe is right, or click on one that you don't know if it's right, and then you can look at it deeper. And then you can click here and actually see the image. So the images are all available for these ones that have been indexed. So then we just have to try to find that one. So here's a William John. Okay, let's zoom that in a little bit. Okay, so at the top of the page, we'll have the district Ballygawly is the registrar's district. Okay, and the Union of Coleraine, County of Londonderry. Okay, so then we go down here. He was born on the January 21st in Ballygawly in 1903. William John, his father was George Doherty from Ballygawly. Margaret Doherty, formerly Callahan, was his mother. His father was a laborer. Okay, they lived at Ballygawly. Well, where is Ballygawly? Okay, so then we can look that up and try to figure that out. So I usually just put that into Google. And Ballygawly, Londonderry. Let's just see what shows up. Okay, so there's this website that's actually also helpful. I said I was just going to share 2 websites, but I'm finding that I want to share more because this website was actually really helpful because there's lots of places in Ireland that are named similar names. So there's probably another Ballygawly somewhere else in Ireland. But this one, it narrows it down by all of these different districts. There's Ballygawly, then on that birth record we have the Ballygawly. Yeah, and then Coleraine and Londonderry. So I know that this is the right one. So it narrows it down to this small little townland, which if you look down here, it tells you how big it is. It's only 0.43 square miles. So that really narrows down where your ancestor actually lived. Okay, then you can zoom out. You can see where that was in relation to other places around and really get a sense of where they lived, what it was like. Okay, you might be able to then find other records based on that, knowing that townland. Okay, let's go back to the birth record. Okay, so now we have that birth record. We have his parents' names. We have his birth date. And we have the exact little townland that he lived in. Okay, so that's how you can find those records on this irishgenealogy.ie website. Now, again, you can look for marriage records, you can look for death records. You can try more search options here where you can put in, if you're searching for a birth, you can put in the mother's name. You can see that one that was in 1903 did have the mother's maiden name there. So that can help to narrow it down even further. Okay. So that's for birth, marriage, and death records after 1864 in Ireland. Now I'm going to show census records. So in Ireland, we have the full census records for 1901 and 1911. So this website that's on the National Archives and website, you can browse those, you can see images, and you can find those places that your ancestors lived. This link in the show notes as well, but it's just on the National Archives of Ireland website, and if you do census.nationalarchives.ie, you can find that. So we're going to look for this William Doherty again. Let's put his name in here. Again, you can use wildcards if you would like in the search. Okay, let's put the county of Derry or Londonderry, and his age in 1911, so he was born in 1903, so he would have been about 7 or, let's do 7. It does plus or minus 5 years. And let's hit search and see what shows up. All right, you can see there's quite a lot that show up. Well, actually not too bad, 27, okay? So we have a few. All right, so we can just go through these and see which ones are his family. So if we go, let's just browse through them quick and see if any of them look like where they lived. Okay, we can see we're getting down to like 4 years old and 12 years old. Ah, there we go. Okay, look at this one. Ballygawly was the townland and Ballygawly. Okay, that looks like it's there. It doesn't it? Okay, so we're going to click on that, and you can see the indexed information here. But then you can actually look at the image down here. So if we look at the first page, we can look at this. 1911 census. Okay. So we have a George Doherty, who was the head of the family. Margaret was the wife. George, the son, was 10. And William John, that's Chris's great grandfather, was 8 years old, and then his youngest sister, Margaret, was 6. Okay, so then we can learn some things about them. We can see his father was a butler. they'd been married for 10 years. You can look at the columns here, the column headings, to find out what those are. You can see that they had 3 children and 3 were still living. You can see the counties where they were born and all of that. Then if we go back here, there's actually an additional page too that tells about, oh, not that one. Okay, this is the one that they each had separate census returns. Census is in the United States and Canada and the UK, but it's pages and pages of people, right? Well, these ones, it's like 1 paper per household. So we have then it lists out, where they lived, and then has the head of the family's name there. Okay, if we go to other original census images, you can see the enumerator's abstract, which doesn't really give us much information. It just tells about the dwelling families and just what religion they were. But this one was kind of interesting, the house and building return, which I show a podcast for Chris's family. But it tells about the actual house that they lived in, which is kind of interesting. So if we look here at George Doherty, so it tells about their house, and I went into that on the podcast, so you can go and look at that. But you can look at that for your own ancestors, learn a bit about their house. So they lived in a 3rd-class house, and their landholder. That can help you find maybe some other records about them too. So that is the censuses. That was for the 1911. All right, so then you can go back and you can search the 1901 census if they lived in Ireland as well. Try to find those census records and try to find more information about your ancestors. So finding censuses, those can help you discover possibly missing children. Maybe you don't know how many children they had, and you might find another child living in their household. And censuses can also help give you clues about where they were born, where they were living at different times, where you can find other records about them. So hopefully that helped you if you have Irish ancestors that lived there in the late 1800s to early 1900s. You can find those records about those ancestors so you can learn more about them, so you can connect to them, so you can get a bit better of an understanding of what their life might have been like in Ireland. So thanks so much for watching today, and we'll see you next week. Thanks so much for watching or listening to the podcast today. If you want to start learning about your own ancestors, you can get my free mini class called 3 Steps to Start Knowing Your Ancestors. It comes with a workbook. It's super short, but has actionable steps that you can take to start knowing your own ancestors. Just go to knowyourancestors.co/3steps or click the link in the show notes to sign up. Thanks again for being here, and we'll see you next time.